Good afternoon, everybody. This is Matt Weiss live on the Bluff at Art Rooney Stadium at Duquesne University. Thank you for joining me live and online today for this AUDL Midwest Division matchup between the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds and the visiting Indianapolis AlleyCats. We have a not perfect day for Ultimate. It's a little chilly. Rain was falling earlier, and it might have suppressed the crowd, but hopefully some of those folks have realized it's going to be a nice evening, and they're getting into their cars or on their bikes or on foot or however you do it. A lot of people out on foot today in Pittsburgh for the Pittsburgh Marathon, and they'll get down here and see what is always a competitive game between these two teams. And in fact, since the inception of the Thunderbirds 4 seasons ago, these two teams have always circled this game on their roster. The AlleyCats are scrappy, as befits their name. They have a championship pedigree, goes all the way back to the first year of the AUDL in 2012, and they perennially feel like they don't get enough respect. This year, they aim to prove it, and they are off to a good start. A record of 4-1. They have notched a couple of wins, including one yesterday against the Detroit Mechanix. And, of course, those wins aren't the toughest ones in the division. They have also beaten the Thunderbirds at their place by about 10 just a few weeks ago. And they notched a win against the Chicago Wildfire, who we saw here a few weeks ago and we know are tough this year. They have not yet faced the Minnesota Wind Chill, and their only loss comes, of course, to the Madison Radicals, who beat them by about a touchdown or so. This Thunderbirds lineup, however, has been unable to produce a win-loss record like they're used to. They have a mirror record, 1-4. The only win, a 1-point opening day win against the Mechanix. These two teams, you can probably tell the story of their 2 seasons by looking at their rosters. If you take a look at the AlleyCats roster, you see a lot of familiar names and familiar faces. Rick Schwartz, Jake Fella, Travis Carpenter, and, of course, Cameron Brock and Keenan Plew. And I'm sorry, I think I just said Fella, and I didn't mean it because I think Jake is playing elsewhere. But, still, Michael Ames and Sam Sohn, guys who we've seen year after year. Meanwhile, you look at the Thunderbirds roster, and, of course, they're tired of hearing about it, but it's got a lot more holes in it than familiar faces. You've got guys like John Mast and David Vatz, who you see right in front of you, and, of course, they are mainstays, the human backwards hat, getting ready to take the field again. But there are guys like Max Thorne, Tyler DiGirolamo, Patrick Earls, Tad Whistle, Anson Repperman, who are either not playing in the AUDL this season or they are someplace else, and that's made a difference. In fact, Coach Pat Hammonds is suited up today, and he told me before the season, if you see me in uniform, then, that means things aren't going according to plan. Wagner about to pull for the AlleyCats. And you'll forgive me as I adjust to their roster because they gave me the roster from Detroit yesterday. So Coach Katie Dyer crossed off some names, and she put some other names on. And so we'll get used to it, and pretty soon these calls will be accurate. In the meanwhile, take a look at our Thunderbirds and who they have out on offense. They're going to begin in the vertical stack. And we've got Mike Gorham running the disc out to Jonathan Mast, who will put it in play at the brick mark, flanked by Max Shepard to his right, and then top of the stack going back. We've got David Vatz, and making cut in here, Sam Van Duzen, Ethan the Birdman Beardsley. Vatz catches it on the in cut. Cycling in front of him is Owen Watt, but instead he swings it out to Jonathan Mast, pops it up, and a block for Cox, who is going to go back, pick it up, triple it behind him. And looking downfield at a stack, which is anchored at the top by Schwartz. He catches it with Vatz marking, sends an easy backhand up the line to Jones. Jones catches up to it, leaps, and before you know it, the Indianapolis AlleyCats sees a 1-0 lead. You can see here Schwartz gathering the disc in. He has got an easy look up the line, and that break throw right off the top makes it simple to score, and Watt can't catch up to Jones, but that's not really his responsibility. So as Indianapolis walks to their sideline with a 1-0 lead, the Thunderbirds are going to have to clean up that offense, which has been a problem all year long so far. Let's see what they're going to counter with. They're probably going to keep 0-1 out there, and in fact they are. Van Duzen and Beardsley, Max Shepard, Owen Watt, David Vatz still out there. They hardly had a chance to break a sweat. Jimmy Toll, of course, and Jonathan Mast. Max catches the pull. Jonathan surveys the stack. He laces one up the middle to Jimmy. He flips that forehand out there. That's a tough throw. Max Shepard barely had a chance to look up, and in transition, here come the AlleyCats. Ames on the sideline, marked by Mast. Sends it back to Ringwood. He gets it back on a strike cut. Out into space to number 15, Robbie Craven. Craven puts it up to number 24. I don't have his name on my roster, but whoever he is, he just caught himself the AlleyCats' second goal. With 10:49 remaining in the first period, it's 1-0 Indy. So once again, sloppiness, the inability to do the basic stuff. And, you know, I'm not sure if I'm in love with that little forehand flip out to the streaking Max Shepard. It's a much tougher pass than it looks like, and that's all of a sudden 2 breaks. Thunderbirds are down. We still have yet to get a look at the Indianapolis offensive team, but now with the great big pull coming down to Pat Mack, we get a look at 0-2. Eddie Peters sends it over to Pat Hammonds, the coach. He sees Trucks Trimble, looks him off, instead dumps a safe one back to Pat Mack. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of dumb plays out of the coach, but he hesitated on that cut. Pat threw it behind him, and now Triplett's got the disc, a big turnover, sends it out to Jones. Only question is, can he keep it in? Can't. Maybe thought to throw a greatest, but didn't have the opportunity. Pat Hammond sends it into the middle. Robarch has it. He finds Eddie Peters. Eddie Peters, who's going to be the coach of Hot Metal this year. He finds Pat Hammonds, another coach cycling in front of him. Pat Mack has it on the far sideline. Looking to get it off of there. Rifles it up to Trucks Trimble. Sam Van Dusen running downfield, not in his usual handling position. A deep dump back to midfield. Thunderbirds back in their own territory. Cycling, looking to get it across the field, and Pat Hammonds runs a little bit of interference on Wegner there. Not too many options for Robarch, but he finds Pat Mack with a lateral dump. Unfortunately, the throw goes up, and Schwartz is able to get his hand on it before it can get to Sam Van Dusen. And the disc falls harmlessly in the end zone. We've got a turnover, and with 9:35 left, Indianapolis back in possession. And a lot of that going around. Cox and Triplett back there. Kip Curtis at the top of the stack. Rick Schwartz, Wegner. Going off the top, Curtis goes deep. We got a big scoober. Goes to Tad Whistle in the house. And now the disc comes out to Wegner. He stomps and throws up a big forehand huck. Underneath it is Ames. And it looks like he might have been bumped a little bit, looking for a call. Sorry, that was Kip Curtis. And Robarch managed to put a little bit of a shoulder into his back, and now Trucks Trimble has it. Eddie Peters looking for a dump, closely covered. Robarch gets some separation. It's sent back. Now it's middle of the Thunderbirds defensive zone. Pat Mack has it now. Looking downfield. Disc in the hands of number 85. I think that might be Jack Heffron wearing 85 today. Again, not on our roster. Jack's got 88. Looks like we've got a timeout.
Timeout, Indianapolis.
So Indy gets the turnover. Now looking to regroup and score. You can see that offensive team out on the field with Keenan Plew, Cameron Brock, Samson. These guys have just been rock steady. And talking to Travis Carpenter before the game, we're talking about how Indianapolis is one of those rare teams in the AUDL where the players in town have committed themselves 100% to the professional team. And, you know, in cities including Pittsburgh, there's been a tendency for the top club players to try to go back and forth to emphasize that AUDL season at the beginning, and then the club season comes along and tournaments get in the way. But the AlleyCats definitely represent the premier team, the premier men's team in Indianapolis. A lot of these guys play for Brickyard. Travis himself plays for Machine in Chicago, but that has helped them to be a consistently tough out for Midwest Division teams. Eddie Peters is going to establish a mark on Keenan Plew. And we've got a vertical stack in front of us. Keegan North at the front. Right behind him is Cameron Brock, Levi Jacobs, Travis Carpenter, and then, of course, Rick goes to the back, and this one goes straight up to North, and he has got no company back there, and before you know it, with 8:20 left, Indy goes up 3-0, and very little good news so far for the home team Thunderbirds. Speaking about good news, though, I wanted to make sure to tell you about something exciting that's coming up. It's going to be, I believe, on June the 6th, but we're going to get everything straight before we tell you all about it. It's going to be the Supercell game, and we want to hear more about that. But you saw just now just how easily Indianapolis has been able to score. They haven't had to do anything spectacular. Just simply wait for the Thunderbirds to make a mistake and then break. Before you know it, they're in the end zone. High pull coming down to Max Shepard. He's going to center it to John Mast. Picks it up off the bounce. It's always a neat trick. That stack splits, and then almost like a little Moses play, but he sees Van Dusen a little too late. Sam comes up, picks it up laterally in a handler position. Throws it nifty, out in front of Ringwood. Now it's in the hands of Jimmy Toll. Centered, looking to play catch with each other a little bit. If they can't do much downfield, then maybe the handlers can play catch and get something done. Jimmy Toll sends up what he hopes is going to be a huck to Sam Van Dusen. Van Dusen gets his left hand on it, but it's not enough. That thing bladed more than he wanted it to. And Colton Steiner was in there to take it away from him. Travis Carpenter scoops it up. Disc is now in the hands of Colin Ringwood. He's got Craven deep downfield. Carpenter lays out. First big play they've had to make. Saves possession right on his goal line. And he's double teamed briefly. Jimmy Toll pops out to cover Ringwood again. Coming out of the vertical stack. AlleyCats have it. Sent back into the middle to Craven. Craven swings it, and now just at midfield, caught by Steiner. Steiner finds his man downfield, Josh Duncan. He's got Travis Carpenter. Owen Watt drops off to cover him, but it's too late. And so, another one. Travis Carpenter, kind of with bookends there. You can see a nice throw to Duncan, and now Duncan's going to find Carpenter, comes back, does that unnecessary goal line check-in. It's just too much of a habit to break. And despite the switch, Owen Watt couldn't pick him up. Kudos to Travis Carpenter there, because it was his big catch on the goal line that enabled him to save that disc, and that would have been the Thunderbirds' best opportunity to score so far. And they're sort of in disarray at the moment. You can tell there's a lot of frustration because nothing so far that they've done has worked, and they've had some mistakes that, you know, should be uncharacteristic at this level, but they've been making them all season. And now as Nick Hutton prepares to pull the disc, that offensive one team is huddled on the sideline trying to figure out what the solution is. Meanwhile, Pat Mack picks it up and finds Robarge. Looks like we're going to go with a horizontal stack instead this time. John Buss sends it over to Eddie Peters. Maybe a little bit more handlage will give the Thunderbirds the opportunity to find some downfield motion. Trucks Trimble breaks out. Jordan Robarge decides to look off that break, and now Eddie Peters is open in front of Pat Mack. Peters has it, launches a huck. The coach is underneath it with Nick Hutton. It's down on the goal line. Hutton jumps up. Pat Hammonds had it if it went past him, but it didn't. Hutton snatched it out of the air, pulls it down, sends it right up to Curtis. Now it's in the hands of, looks like that's Schwartz. Schwartz finds Jones. Wegner's got it now, and he's got a man legging it out downfield. Looks like Curtis. He is all alone. And another goal for the AlleyCats, who are making the rest of the game academic if the Thunderbirds don't find their wings. And you can see there's just nobody there with him. All alone, a lot of room, and maybe the Thunderbirds' lack of depth showing there. 6:03 remaining in this first half, and it's a 5-0 lead. The Thunderbirds yet to get off the schneid. Eddie Peters tried to find his coach, Pat Hammonds, downfield. By the way, now is probably not the most opportune time to say it, but we want to say hi to Peggy and Joe Hammonds back in Radnor. And seeing your son double duty, I'm sure it's exciting to see him put the jersey on again. It's just not as much fun watching a guy coach as it is watching him play. But friends of the Thunderbirds and of our broadcast, we always like to say hi to Peggy and Joe, Pat's parents. Meanwhile, Max Shepard in possession of the disc down on the Thunderbirds goal line, but he finds David Vatz. He's marked by Steiner. Now the disc in the hands of John Mast, who's been bearing the lion's share of the handling load. Max Shepard never afraid to launch one, and the big man, the Birdman, Ethan Beardsley, is under it, but he can't get to it before Gross jumps up and pulls it down. Gross led the league in blocks a couple of years ago, and despite the height advantage, he was able to just get position and pull it out of the air. Meanwhile, AlleyCats working it up the line. Ringwood's got one, and he's got Duncan open up the line for another goal. And this is a real bloodletting, folks. It is 6-0 favor of the AlleyCats. And you can see it, that deep game off the transition. Duncan by himself again. That's the second goal in a row where he looks around. Do I have company? Anybody I need to talk to? Nope, all by himself. So a disappointing start for the Thunderbirds. I talked to Coach Lionetti, and he said, you know, it's just a matter of not having the depth and having those horses go down for us. For instance, Mo Jada did some damage to his knee in the opener, and now he won't be back, and we don't see Alex Thomas out here today. It's just not the depth of the roster that we've been used to, but they still need to find a way to pull it together as they await Wegner's pull. He goes with the forehand again and get on the board before this quarter is any further elapsed. John Buss with offense two is going to take possession of it. And he finds Robarge, laces one up to Van Duzen. Always a danger to huck it, and he had Eddie Peters going deep against John Jones, but thought the better of it. Maybe that's good. John Buss throws a forehand to Max Shepard. There's no deep cut for him. He's going to have to look to gain yards the hard way. Sends it across to Buss, and Buss just skips off of his fingertips. Maybe a throw too far, but as a pro, you got to get it. John Jones gets lost, and the disc stays in bounds, but does Jones. We'll see the call. It's called a turnover, and Max Shepard wastes no time. Takes the disc out of Jones's hand, sends it up to his coach. Still on this sideline. He shoots one up to Van Duzen. Looking with that lefty. He's got Hammonds juking, jiving, but instead sends it to Eddie Peters, who catches it just before a diving Schwartz can make a block. Van Duzen open again. Wegner trying to find him, and will Max Shepard go deep for him? He doesn't. He's over on the sideline. He's got Trimble going deep, and he sends one out with a big break. Trimble running underneath it, but he stumbles a little bit and is unable to pull it down. That would have been a beautiful shot, and it's one that probably Trucks knew that Sam wanted to throw as soon as he took possession of it. He looked across the field, and with that left-handed forehand, that rifle of his, he's always a danger to send it into that space. It just didn't hang up long enough, and Trucks had to look for it over his head. Meanwhile, breaking right out of the stack is Gross. Cox has the disc, working with Triplett, deep in their end zone, right at the reverse brick mark. Trimble setting in on the mark, sent out to Wegner. Wegner laces it up to Schwartz, and they gain a little breathing room, and then it's popped back out to Wegner again. Working downfield is Hutton. Curtis now makes a cut against Eddie Peters. Does Triplett have the gun? He does not. Decides, no, let's set this up again, boys. Sends a nifty little forehand centering pass to Wegner. He's looking at a tired stack right now, and he pops a break force scuba over the top to Cox. He finds Triplett, and then again by himself, or was Eddie Peters baiting this one? Certainly looks like it, but he pops it off his hands, and Wegner almost manages to come up with it. They say catch your D's, and there's a reason. This one's in the hands of Van Duzen. Shepard working downfield, and as he clears, Robarge comes open. Will Pat Hammond see him? Sure he does, with a high release. And now John Buss going downfield, chasing after this backhand from Robarge. He catches it on the doorstep, Triplett with him, pops it back to Max Shepard. Now he's ISO'd there, working hard against Triplett. They got to get it off that corner, and Max Shepard says, I don't like what I see. And he can hear the official over there, Neil Donovan, counting that stall. He's looking right at him as that arm is moving, and Max Shepard makes a veteran move, and he is a veteran now, no longer the kid from Edinburgh. See a really nice shot to John Buss from Jordan Robarge, and Buss gathers it in, sends it smartly back to Shepard, but sometimes you can get away with that little dipsy doodle cut right by the cone, maybe fake to the inside and get your guy to commit. It's a tough defensive assignment on the goal line, but instead the disc ended up kind of getting frozen there, and so Max Shepard called the timeout. We've got 2:44 left in this quarter. It's going very quickly. The score is 6-0, favor of the visiting Indianapolis AlleyCats, who came in here with something to prove. They have nobody to look up to in the standings right now but Madison. They await a game against Minnesota, who also has gotten off to a slow start, but has had a tough roster, including, I think, a cross-coast game. And then it's their showdown with the wind chill. Thunderbirds have gotten offense number one on the field, and that means that we're going to see John Mast in there, Jimmy Toll at the top of the stack, David Vatz, Owen Watt, Pat Max in there, and then the big Birdman at the back of the stack. So let's see how the Thunderbirds use this opportunity to get off of the Schneid and onto the scoreboard for the first time with this quarter in its waning minutes. Waiting for a whistle to get started. Of course, AUDL players can move before the whistle. Mike Gorham has counted the disc in. There's the whistle. We see Sam Van Duzen going up the line. David Vatz, and he flips it up to Van Duzen, who snatches it away from a defender. There's our first score for the Thunderbirds, and it looked like Robbie Craven was going to get it, but Van Duzen saw him coming. He reached up and he pulled it right away. And that was kind of a desperation throw there. That wasn't the one that John Mast wanted to throw, but Sam Van Duzen broke into space and pulled it down. So finally, Pittsburgh manages to get that goose egg off the scoreboard, and let's see who they send out to send this one down to the Indianapolis AlleyCats, who have got their offensive team on the field for the first time. Looks like Levi Jacobs is out there, Keegan North, a new addition to this Indianapolis roster. All the rest are pretty much mainstays. Travis Carpenter will be out there. Rick Gross, it looks like to me. Cameron Brock and Keenan Blue and Sam Sohn. Meanwhile, the Thunderbirds will counter with AK Anthony Kahn. Looks like somebody might have been offsides. And the call looks like it's coming from head referee Brian Heim. And sure enough, this one looks like it's going to be put into play at the midfield stripe. That's a big penalty for offsides. And you don't gain much advantage, but sometimes it's hard to keep track of where that line is. So Keenan Plew with Sam Sohn as a sidecar and Travis Carpenter right in front of him. And his old buddy Cameron Brock at the back will get to put this in play. He breaks right off the bat to Carpenter. Carpenter surveys the field. He's being marked hard. Got Sam Sohn cutting in front of him, pops one up in the air. Brock pulls it down sure-handedly. Sends it over to North. North marked by Trimble. And then Brock makes a shot up the line, but the Diesel was with him. Plew in the middle, sends it around. Gross has it. Rifles one up to Brock and in front of a diving John Diamikis, but John Diamikis could not come up with the block. And with 2:10, Indy adds another one, and it's 7-1. It was a great big by Diamikis. You'll see that right here, but he's just unable to come up with it. And Cameron Brock is a sneaky guy and also a quick guy. Not a young man. He's been with this team, as we said, for 6 years now. But he and Plew know each other so well. They even look a little bit alike. Plew's got that kind of bantam rooster look to him. And, you know, he's not as tall as Brock, but both of those guys with that shaved head and that complete game. They can throw deep and they can go deep. Meanwhile, with just about 2 minutes remaining, Thunderbirds looking to receive the pull with their number 1-0 team. Coming down a little bit short. Manages to miss Jimmy Toll. Max Shepard struggling to pick this one up, and that kind of typifies the way things are going. Ames able to settle in, but not before a pass to Pat Hammonds. I'm sorry, Jimmy Toll finds Owen Watt. Nice big swing to Mast. They send it all the way over to the other sideline, and then with the lefty laser that's probably got too much bite on it, Sam Van Duzen bladed that more than he wanted to, and unable to come down with it on the other end was his receiver, Jimmy Toll. So Ames takes the pylon, throws it aside, goes back to pick up the disc. He'll be marked by Jonathan Mast, and behind him looks like Ringwood. Shoots it back to him. Now in the middle of the end zone with Steiner. Steiner sends it out to Gross, and he's got a deep cutter. Steiner is going. He is all by himself. He beats both Watt and bats down the field, and now sent across the field to Ringwood, who is going to lay out. If he had caught it, it would have been a heck of a play, and they just gave an easy one away. Now we're into the last minute of play as Max Shepard takes possession of it. Thunderbirds have a chance to score and keep this within 5. Max Shepard running, and he's got company with him and can't come up with the catch. So it's Indianapolis disc with 45 seconds remaining. Michael Ames, we love talking with him. And Rick Gross all by himself, waving his hand, saying, hey, somebody find me. Comes back across the field now for Steiner. Instead, he pops it out to Gross on an in-cut. Toll on him. Working real hard against Sam Van Dusen is Ringwood. Gross, little bump on the mark. Van Dusen jumps up, tries to take it away from Ringwood, can't. And Owen Watt, another unsuccessful bid. Henderson with the disc in his hands, sent into the middle. Ringwood's got it. He's got an open Ames right on the doorstep. And now a little bit of a mix-up, sends an incomplete inside out to Steiner in the back of the end zone. And time is ticking off the clock. Should, however, have been frozen with that out of bounds. And the Thunderbirds should have about 3 seconds to make a play here. So looks like they're going to put 5 back on the clock. Last minute of play, every dead disc. So here goes Van Dusen. Certainly has the gun to send this all the way into the end zone. Underneath it, he's got Jimmy Toll, the Birdman, and playing trash man. Jimmy Toll just scoots underneath it, and with time expiring, the Thunderbirds manage to end the quarter with a goal, and it's 7-2, favor of the AlleyCats, but a nice way to end that quarter for a Thunderbirds team that was just overmatched in the first quarter and needs to find a solution. Not only that, they're going to have to pull to start this one. You saw Anthony Kahn get in the game, and we definitely want to acknowledge a special and somber day for his family. Anthony recently lost his brother. He was a special young man. His name was Marvick Laxton. He was only 12 years old, and when he was born with only half a heart. But he didn't live like that. He lived as if he had 2 hearts, and apparently that heart was a big one. That hypoplastic left heart syndrome didn't slow him down. He was a loving young man. He enjoyed baseball, but he liked all sports, and as his big brother got more and more into Ultimate, he came to enjoy it more and more. And so sadly, they had to say goodbye to Marvick. That heart gave out. But today the Thunderbirds honor him and his brother, their teammate, and their brother, Anthony, and his family. So we send out our condolences and our heartfelt sympathy to them for the loss of this exceptional young man, part of the Thunderbird family and always in our hearts, Marvick. 12 minutes up on the clock as we prepare to begin the second quarter. And hopefully the Thunderbirds can use this opportunity to change the complexion of the game. But it's hard to make adjustments for a coach like Pat Hammonds when he's got to be out there in the game. And sure enough, he's on the field right now, and he's got the disc in his hands. So, you know, when you're trying to figure out what do we do to stop that get deep game, what do we do to generate some more movement off of our offense, how do we stop these mistakes from simple and routine sorts of plays that turn out to be anything but. It's difficult to do that when you got a pair of cleats on and you have to worry about the man across from you, which is what he has to do right now with this defensive team. As he launches this pull, we can see the Thunderbirds trying some stuff to maybe jumpstart themselves with the coach on the field. Sam Sohn sends it into the middle to Keenan Plew, and we're going to see the first of that kind of line, that zone that the Thunderbirds run to try to slow down the offense and make them make a lot of passes. And you can see how it works. You've got Steve May in there, and now it's gotten up through that line. It's in the hands of North, and he sends it over to Ringwood, who finds Gross over there, and he's looking at his options. Carpenter catches it. They're just playing catch, and now the Thunderbirds look like they got back into a man on the goal line. That's what you typically would do. High one for Sam Sohn, and it looks like Thunderbirds catch a break there. And in the area of that was Ryan Ciccione, And now Big John Buss picks it up off the top of the stack. Here's a big shot. The Diesel's back there with a lot of company, and he just can't get through it. North goes in front of him. So Felipe Delgado looks over to the sideline at Coach Lionetti, the Weasel, Dave Lionetti, and says, yeah, I know I probably shouldn't have thrown that one. Definitely shouldn't have thrown that one. And the Thunderbirds squander a rare gift about a minute into this second quarter as Keenan Plew walks it up, and we see that zone settle in again. The idea here is just for the AlleyCats to be patient, play catch with each other, and then they pop one over to Brock. The idea is just try to force a mistake if they possibly can. And these guys are experienced enough, so that's not very likely. In fact, the mistake that they made last time was against a man-to-man, which they went into on the goal line. Meanwhile, the core of the offense just plays catch with it until Carpenter gets ambitious, sends it out into the corner in front of Gross, and he can't come up with it. A lot of the times he will. So, you know, the zone kind of pays off there. Wasn't exactly the way that they drew it up, but anytime you can get a team to get impatient and try to do more than it should, and you get a turnover out of it, the zone did its job. Sending that shot across the field to the fill, who was supposed to be Delgado. North comes down with it, is fouled as he throws. It might be academic here. We'll see what referee Heim calls. There is contact on the mark as Delgado kind of gave a little bump. Didn't mean to, but was kind of stumbling. And they call the foul, and I think they're going to have a consultation right now between Donovan and Heim to determine whether or not that was a goal. Guess it wasn't, because this disc is going to come back out. You can see we're going to watch his feet here. And it seems to me like he might very well have caught that, but it's academic. Instead, the disc goes back into play, and it looks like we just froze it for an injury there. It doesn't look like there was a caller. It might be on the goal line. All right, these two guys playing catch with each other, North and Plew, and now breaking out is Samson, followed by Cicciolini, and D'Amicis lays out for it, and this time he catches it. Actually, he blocks it. Looks like he kind of had his hand around it and dropped it, but a great big block by the Diesel. Let's see if that can spark the Birds. One sent up the line to Buss, who goes up, grabs it with the left hand. He had Delgado open deep. Instead, he pulls it back and sends one. Looks like it might have been meant for that in cutter. Couldn't get a look at whether or not that was Jordan Robarge, but number 92, whoever's wearing 92, he's not on my roster today, so we'll get that word from the sidelines at halftime. In any event, though, Levi Jacobs sends it up, finds Keegan North. Looks off Rick Gross in the corner, sends it out to Travis Carpenter, who has become a mainstay handler on this team. Very comfortable with that scuba, and he finds Samson, joined by Cicciolini. Sends out a big swing, losing some yardage, still in the attacking zone. Plew looked like it was too tall for him. Very little is too tall for him. Little reminder of Kenny Dobbins there. This is an ugly throw, but Cameron Brock has made a career out of coming down with stuff like that. And despite attempts on the part of Indianapolis to give a gift or two to the Thunderbirds, they end up scoring on a throw that could have been blocked by either one of those guys, but instead Cameron Brock sticks up that big right claw, pulls it down, and the Thunderbirds find themselves trailing by a score of 8-2. We've got 8:13 remaining. We're going to take a look ahead on the schedule for just a moment and let you know about our upcoming games. Pittsburgh Thunderbirds playing all season here at this beautiful stadium up here on the bluff at Duquesne. It's a great place to watch a game. Good concessions. Grab a beer if you're of age. We'd love to see you out here. Next week, Thunderbirds will be on the road, the 12th against Chicago, and again against Indianapolis, but they will be back in town for the wind chill on the 19th of May, so come on out for that. That's going to be a 5 o'clock game. I'm sorry, a 6 o'clock game against the wind chill. David Vatz running underneath this one, pulls it in, and for once, the Thunderbirds are able to score easily. David the human backwards hat Vatz comes up with it. You see him running underneath this one, and finally, he has no company. Closest one to him is Aaron Schwartz. How do you like that, members of the tribe, fellow members of the tribe? Couple of Jewish guys on that play. And 1 point for the Thunderbirds brings it to 8-3. Melanie Callahan, Thunderbirds assistant director of promotions, is down there with the Hucket Bucket Challenge disc for just $2. If you're out here, you can buy a disc and try to throw it in the Hucket Bucket. David Vatz smiling there. He loves finding those open spaces on the field. And I believe that was Max Shepard who aired it out to him. And here with a clap, the AlleyCats ready to receive this high pull, a little bit short. Samson puts it in play. 8 minutes left. Thunderbirds down 8-3, back within 5. In a man, vertical stack for the AlleyCats. This one laced up and out of the reach of Cameron Brock. So the AlleyCats showing a little generosity. 2 guys follow Pat Mack, and that means somebody's open, and it's Trucks Trimble across the field. Samson can't get to him. Little confusion as to who's to cover the handler. Eddie Peters gets one taken right away from him. Trucks Trimble didn't lead him enough. And another missed opportunity as Keegan North looks. The only guy he has open downfield is Brian Heim, the referee. Bumped a little on the mark, and he looks to the referee and asks for a call. Doesn't get it. Travis Carpenter sends it back to him. He's at midfield with the disc in his hands. Jordan Robarge marking him. John Diamichis marking North. A big bid there from Akon, but Brock corrals it. And very patient, Indianapolis just working it around. Rolling with that handler and picking up zone is Robarge. Back into the middle is Plouffe, sure-handed as always. Finds Gross right on the doorstep, and he's in. So, an errant pass that could have led to a Thunderbird score to close things within 4. Instead, turns into a 6-point lead as Rick Gross gathers this one in and jumps into the end zone. Oftentimes when a guy jumps like that, he catches the disc before he leaves his feet. Not that time. Gross made sure. And you saw just how methodical and how clockwork-like, how machine-like that Indianapolis offense is right now. They move it up a little bit to one side. If it's not there for a continue, they dump it back, send it across the field, gain a few yards, punch it up a little bit further, and they just keep working like that until they've got a break. And it's been grinding down the T-Birds. Score on your monitor agrees with the score on the scoreboard, and on my score sheet it is 9-3. Here comes the pull. Offense 1 back out there. And the big lefty, Sam Van Dusen from Pitt, gathers it in, finds his friend John Mast. John Mast, the always open David Vatz. Big fake, which gets Curtis to flinch a little bit. I'm sorry, that's Steiner on him. And this one is laced inside out to Max Shepard. He's got a couple options downfield, doesn't like either one of them. Decides to cautiously send it out to Van Dusen, who sends a big one across the field, pulled down by Jimmy Toll, playing a big role on the team this year, a captain. Mast kind of does a little dipsy doodle, sends it to Vatz, and Vatz gets it down again in front of Steiner. So Jonathan Mast fakes his man out, and the Thunderbirds put another one on the scoreboard, and at least these goals are coming a little bit quicker. So the Thunderbirds trying to find some light. Nice throw into the back of the end zone, and David Vatz knows his throwers well, times his cuts perfectly, and is very often, despite his advancing years, which is funny for me to say since I remember him back at Mount Lebanon when he was a young and hot-headed, but very savvy and very speedy high school player. David Vatz, he's known for being a little bit combative, a really smart guy, an attorney by trade, but also a guy who's contributed a tremendous amount to Pittsburgh Ultimate. We'll talk in a little bit about the Pull Scholarship because the halftime entertainment today is going to be the the Central Catholic. Oakland Catholic would be the girls. The Central Catholic team here with their coach Greg Jeffries to scrimmage, and Pittsburgh High School Ultimate is thriving, of course, and David Vatz has something to do with that. Meanwhile, something to do with the Indianapolis lead is Keegan North and Keenan Plouffe. Travis Carpenter playing against that loose zone, trying to bait them into a mistake. Running sprints across this field is this zone, trying to attenuate it a little bit. Pat Hammond's back there. Steve May playing one wing in the zone. And then sent back a little bit more. These two guys playing catch with each other, very hard to stop. And then they find Levi Jacobs in the middle. And no need to do anything dangerous for the AlleyCats. Not a very windy day. Any rain that was on the field is probably evaporated by now. easy to grip the disc, and you see sure-handed passes. Maybe an opportunity for a block there, but just beyond their reach. Cicciolini settles in on the mark. And you'll notice they don't even necessarily mark all the time in this. He's trying to cover the downfield cuts, but you know, the AlleyCats aren't giving them much chance to mark. They're just throwing it quickly. Plu on the goal line. He finds North. There's a little bit of contact there between Bus and North, but no hard feelings. Aside from the hard feelings that come from trailing 10-4 with just about 5 minutes left in the half. You can see Plu catches it there and a little bit of contact, and John Buss says, hey, buddy, I was just trying to get in that space. Owen Watt, new addition to the Thunderbirds this year, chatting up David Vatz. You can see those pennants in the background blowing, but like I said, not a particularly inclement day. Lights are on here, probably don't need them. Wegner with those fancy green tights, surveying the wind, which is blowing against him. So we're looking for short pulls in this direction. And honestly, they've mostly been in this direction. A lot of scoring down in that end zone. But really, Indianapolis scoring every which way. This is a high pull. Bending, settling down in front of Shepard, who catches it on the bounce. And now Jonathan Mast has David Vatz going deep and instead swings it out to Sam Van Duzen, who gathers it in. Throws a little nice swing to Owen Watt, who is briefly double-teamed. And then Cox tries to find Mast, who gets open behind him. Shepard's got a gun and looking for Van Duzen. He has him in the end zone. Van Duzen launches just beyond him. Max Shepard, got to admire his guts taking that shot. Has to like the receiver on the other end of it. And typically that's one that he's going to send out there for him. He had him, but Max just got a little bit more blade on it. We saw Van Duzen get a little bit too much blade on a huck earlier too. So Thunderbirds maybe squeezing it a bit too tight. John Jones open for a big one, and not a downfield thrower most of the time. Looking for an easy one, and he finds it by going back to Cox. And then he'll take off with Ethan Beardsley in pursuit. Triplet, a break throw to him off the top of the stack. This one's up in the air. What might happen? We've got Vatz, and Schwartz, and I think Vatz is going to get whistled for that. I don't think that it was necessarily catchable, but Vatz held out his arm. He's making his best case, but the judge rejects that claim, and not only is Schwartz going to get the disc, he's going to get 10 more yards. So I think that it's a legit call. You know, David Vatz threw out that arm and kind of corralled Schwartz. I don't know that Schwartz was going to get that disc. It was plummeting pretty quickly, but he does have it in his hands now. Hutton goes right off the top, and Jones catches it, jamming it up the jam hole, as they say. Set on by Vatz, who's angry. He puts an angry mark on Jones, and Brian Heim whistles him again. You hear some angry calls from the crowd, and Vatz is definitely unhappy, but we could see that coming. Double team settles on Jones, and he finds Cox backwards. And David's not above getting chippy. Owen Watt settles in on Wegner. Jones circulating underneath, and there's a big crowd there. Cox rumbling through, brings it down, Mast on him. Shepard tries to give it a little bit of a bip as it goes by him, but he can't. And John Jones just runs underneath it. So a frustrating point for the Thunderbirds, who find themselves trailing 11-4 with 3 minutes left. You can see Jones underneath this one. You didn't get to see the bid that came on the block there, but it was to no avail. Talking about the always litigious David Vatz and his role in Pittsburgh Ultimate, it's a great story. But many years ago, when David Vatz was still in high school, he and Darren Schultz, who is a Pittsburgh Ultimate institution, since moved out of the area, but always part of Pittsburgh Ultimate. These two guys started the Pittsburgh High School Ultimate League, or PUL Scholarship Fund. And every year, that scholarship goes to a deserving Pittsburgh High School Ultimate player, a boy and a girl, who shown a lot of promise and have committed to go to college in a Pennsylvania school. So trying to keep these folks in the area, and a lot of deserving recipients. Maybe one of them will be here with Central Catholic tonight, but that's something that started with David Vatz. So sometimes hard to remember when he's arguing a point with you, what a big-hearted guy he is and how much he's contributed to Pittsburgh Ultimate. As a board member of Pittsburgh Ultimate, and as a player, of course, he continues to make a big impact. Speaking of players, Pat Mack with a vertical stack and a horizontal stack in front of him. John Buss, Steiner on him. Henderson takes over the mark, and Buss and Pat Mack play catch. Looking to maybe pop something open downfield and kind of rotating cuts with each swing pass. This time it's Trimble running in, but they can't seem to find anybody. Eddie Peters floating in the middle. Jack Heffron, first time we've called his name today. Double team, almost triple teamed. Now the disc in the hands of the coach, Pat Hammonds, and he's got Eddie Peters going deep, but he can't get the thing up in the air, and it's blocked. And the Indianapolis AlleyCats go the other way. Clock ticking down to about 2:30. Carpenter in the middle of that offense, as he has been all day. Flips the disc sideways to North. Scott Trimble joins him. And the two of them playing catch. This one doesn't look like it's going to work out, but Carpenter catches it before it comes in. And North pulls it down in the end zone for another Indianapolis score. Didn't look like it was necessarily going to go that way, but it went that way. Carpenter has been unstoppable today, as has North. And you can see again, he floats a pretty little pass to North, and by then it was all academic. And Thunderbirds find themselves trailing by 7 without an answer, as we see these Central Catholic players coming out on the field in their unis, and North goes over to get some well-deserved congratulations. Indianapolis. Indy looking loose and relaxed. See trainer, Thunderbirds' two trainers, their medical trainer, Anthony Mobile, and their physical, their coach trainer, their conditioning and strength guy, who's my guy too. And that's Donald Robinson of Global Human Performance in the sidelines, trying to keep these guys healthy and fit, and they are. But looking a little overmatched so far today. Max Shepard with a nice cut up the line. He just fakes Hutton out of his shocks and doesn't catch up with him. And he sends one across the field, a Max Shepard special to Sam Van Duzen. 2 passes, it's all over, and that's what Max Shepard can do for you. He fakes his man out. Hutton could not catch up to him on that strike cut, and then catches it, sees Sam Van Duzen going across the field, and this one floats right out in front of Van Duzen. Triplett can't catch up, and the Thunderbirds put their 5th score up on the board, and hardly any time elapses as they can send out their D2 team to try to stifle Indianapolis and maybe pull this game to within 6. And you see these two guys, good friends, one of them the pride of Edinburgh. That would be Max Shepard, Sam Van Duzen, who has taken over the mantle of the lefty laser from Patrick Earls. And he showed you there that he also knows how to cut for his handlers, and Max Shepard finds him across the field. Eddie Peters launches a pull that's going to come down in the hands of Samson. And Samson puts it on the carpet. My goodness, how often does that happen? It's going to be the Thunderbirds disc, and maybe coach will want to take a timeout here. Pat Mack has the disc, sends an inside out up to Beardsley, who's got, no, that's all alone. I think it might be Eddie Peters all by himself. So very quickly the Thunderbirds rip off a couple of them. And Samson puts it on the carpet. Pat Mack throws a nice inside out. And then Eddie Peters just gathers it in the end zone. He doesn't put it on the carpet. Samson's a great player. Speedy player, sure-handed receiver, good thrower. And that just, you know, it's like the old song says, everybody plays the fool sometimes. There's no exceptions to the rule. Looks like a timeout was called before that goal was scored, so they're going to have to take points off the board. But nice execution by O2. Looks low that Coach Lionetti and Coach Hammonds decided, you know what, we want to make sure. And so they are going to put that offensive 1 team out there. 0-1, of course, consists of handlers Jonathan Mast and Max Shepard, with David Vatz at the top of the stack. The Birdman second. Van Duzen follows him. And then Owen Watt and Jimmy Toll to round it out. And who will the AlleyCats counter with to try to hold on to this 7-point lead with 1:41 left? Looks like North will pick up the disc. He'll have Hutton for company. And then marking David Vatz at the top is Schwartz. Travis Carpenter will take on Van Duzen. Gross will keep Ethan Beardsley company. You see him with an arm on him. And it looks like we've got Curtis and Jones Disc is sent back to Max Shepard. He throws it to Mast. And then coming back to join them is Van Duzen. Disc moving backwards now. Boy, it's a shame those points came off the board because it looks like they're going to have to work for it. And John Jones makes a bid in front of Jimmy Toll. I don't know if Jimmy got his hand on it or not. But unfortunately, that 6-point didn't count. And now Travis Carpenter with 1:18 left, marked by Ethan Beardsley, has the disc. And it is blocked on a swing attempt by Max Shepard. And this all might work out after all. John Mast has his offense in front of him. Little contact between Toll and Gross. It's sent sideways and a little stumble. I don't think he was expecting that break, that inside break. I think he expected a step around, and Sam Van Dusen can't catch up with it. Curtis going deep, and it looks like we're going to get a timeout from Indianapolis. So, a story that we know well here. You've got Max Shepard sending this out to Jimmy Toll, and John Jones just had the inside line. And then Max Shepard giveth, and then Max Shepard taketh away with a nice block on an attempted swing. But then Van Dusen can't quite catch up to one from Mast, who broke to the inside instead of taking that step around. And then he just seemed to be caught flat-footed. And now Indy's got the disc with a chance to score, and we'll get to see a defensive alignment. The Diesel, who has stepped up his role as a vocal presence off the field as well as on the field. Little Pat Mack there. Likes to keep that neck covered, always that neck gaiter. Jack Heffron is an Alloy player. Akon is out there with his trademark bandana around his neck. Eddie Peters, another coach on the field. And, of course, Hampton's own Scott Trucks Trimble, the welder. Jordan Robarch going back to play defense against Carpenter. Pat Mack will match up against Keenan Plew. Folks, we hope you're enjoying our broadcast here today. With the help of Video House, we got more camera angles, more replays than ever before. And you can find us on YouTube and reach us through our Facebook page. With 45 seconds left, the disc is in the hands of Levi Jacobs. He snaps off an inside out. Trucks Trimble says no way to Gross. And the Thunderbirds have got 38 seconds to make something happen, and Eddie Peters picks it up. And in-cutting Akon corrals it on the far sideline, marked aggressively by Levi Jacobs, looking for some help, and jacks it up in the air to Scott Trimble. If it gets over Gross, which it doesn't, Trimble would have had it. Now Brock has it, 20 seconds left. Disc is in Carpenter's hands. Plew out in space, but gaining ground is Pat Mack, not quick enough. 14 seconds left. North has the disc. He's joined quickly by Heffron. And this one's floated up. It's going to come down in the end zone. Who's going to get it? Not the AlleyCats, as Eddie Peters gets his hands on it. And time expires. The half is over. And the Thunderbirds walk off the field unbowed, but a little bit dejected, as they have been unable to find an answer for the Indianapolis AlleyCats. Too many mistakes by the Thunderbirds, too many failures to capitalize on opportunities that have been given to them by the visitors, the AlleyCats. And so they will head into the locker room, huddle with their player coach, and try to find a solution. Meanwhile, across the field, the AlleyCats have to feel comfortable where they are, and Eric Leonard and Katie Dyer will game plan with them for the second half, which you can join us for in just about 10 minutes. So go take a break, do what you got to do, and then come back for the second half of this game, which we leave with the Indianapolis AlleyCats ahead, 12-5 over the Thunderbirds. Come back to us. Hey everybody, thanks for coming back and joining us after a rough first half for the Thunderbirds, and you can see some of these highlights. There's Keegan North coming down with a big throw, and then you can see what some of the few Thunderbirds successful plays as that half was frustrating for the Thunderbirds. A lot of stuff like Curtis getting open deep. Josh Duncan running underneath it. You just had so much of that. The Thunderbirds frustrated by their inability to stop the AlleyCats and to take advantage of some gifts like that. A drop pass in the end zone would end up with the Thunderbirds unable to capitalize, even calling timeouts to get their offensive team on the field. And successes were few and far between as the Thunderbirds come out into this half, finding themselves down 12-5. Sam Van Dusen giving them a bright spot, pulling the disc out of the air in front of his defender. John D'Amicis, as usual, laying out all over the place, but sometimes it's just not your day, and so far it hasn't been for this Thunderbirds team, which has been so frequently unable to get on the same page as each other. You see Ringwood lacing on one up in front of a diving Owen Watt. Jimmy Toll pulls one down for the Thunderbirds, but there just weren't enough of them. And too often, it was the Thunderbirds on the other end of the drop disc, like Rick Gross there. And there was one play that I thought was pretty emblematic, and that was when the T-Birds scored towards the end of the half after a block, kind of like that one. And scored, but called timeout beforehand, and before you knew it, that point was off the board. Cameron Brock, as always, a factor. David Vatz, maybe the player of the game so far for the Thunderbirds, has accounted for most of their goals. And we'll try to get some stats coming up. Tony can send them over shortly. And we saw Plew and Brock playing catch all day with one another. Carpenter too. Standouts like Gross. So a rough beginning for the Thunderbirds, but maybe they can flip a switch and flip the script. Certainly Matty Francis is usually up here in the booth with me doing the play-by-play announcements. He's down there for naked Bill Holman, who had to be elsewhere today. Matty trying to get this crowd fired up, but so far not a lot to cheer about. Let's see if they can change that as Jonathan Mass takes possession of the disc at around the brick mark, sends it back to Shepard. Thunderbirds in a horizontal stack, and Max Shepard going deep, and Sam Van Dusen doesn't waste any time. Wegner's given chase, so is Schwartz, but he's not going to catch up to Max Shepard, who waits for it. Open arms. So maybe a preview of what the Thunderbirds are planning to do this half. They played catch, and then Max Shepard running from the handler position, chasing it down. He had company, but nobody close enough, and Sam Van Dusen with that big lefty backhand bender finds him in the end zone, and with just 17 seconds elapsed, the Thunderbirds are within 6. A break would sure be nice here. They don't have a lot of time to waste when you start the game out down 6-0, yet really don't have a lot of room to maneuver in the second half. You're going to have to be darn near perfect, and hopefully that was the product of an adjustment by coaches Lionetti and Hammonds in the locker room. And it takes advantage of two of their great weapons. Max Shepard is a guy you have to respect in the handle as a thrower, but he can always turn it up downfield, and he's probably going to be more athletic than the guy he's going against, and certainly speedier. Samson, marked by Robarge. Thunderbirds back out in the man. D'Amicis against Carpenter. Eddie Peters against Jacobs. He's flanked by Carpenter, sends it backward. And then this one comes across the field to Plew, gathers it in front of Pat Mack. He looks at a vertical stack in front of him. He has North, but decides not to throw it. Flips it over to Carpenter. Inside out. Whoa, it's a big bid on the part of Akon. Misses it. Now Gross has it. Trimble puts a mark on him. Thunderbirds offering stiff defensive resistance here. And that one nearly jumps on Cameron Brock, and he does an old school thing, and that is catches it with that crocodile catch, that clap catch. Levi Jacobs sends one across to him. And that disc is bouncing around at midfield. The wind is not that stiff, but this is a stadium that, as Ethan Beardsley pointed out to us earlier this year, is open at all four corners. Running a strike cut is Plew. Cycles away from him, though. North looking. He has Brock. He takes Jordan Robars with him into the end zone, turns to the outside, turns to the inside, and catches the 13th point for the AlleyCats with 10:33 remaining in period 3. And you can see not much for him to do there, but just turn around and catch a disc floated perfectly into his hands. And you can't blame Anthony Kahn for that big bid that he made on that up-the-line throw. It was the one that allowed the AlleyCats to break out, but it was necessary. The Thunderbirds playing stiff defense and needing the break, and you're going to have to gamble there. It allowed an unmarked throw, and that kind of sent the AlleyCats off to the races, but it was something they needed. Max Shepard on the field to anchor this line. Van Dusen and Mass now shading their eyes against the sun, which has come out. And then downfield, Owen Watt starts to go deep, opening up space for David Vatz in front of Steiner. David Vatz doesn't usually like to throw it downfield, and he's looking desperately for a dump, and he finds one. And John Mass, who sends an inside out up to Shepard. Van Dusen, open in front of him, is hit with a scuba. He's got Toll downfield. Shepard got downfield, and he sends it across the field again. Is Jimmy going to be able to pull this down in front of Curtis? Yes, he is! What a shot by Sam Van Dusen, taking advantage of the cross-field break. Jimmy Toll's been making plays like that this year, and he had the inside position, but you can see he's up there against a bigger man. Didn't have a chance, though. He used his body to get himself between the disc and Curtis in frustration says, try to get it another time. And there you see Matty Francis doing everything he can to exhort the crowd. And Van Dusen, so far, his throws the difference in a more effective half. Talked to the owner of the team, one of the two owners, Tracy Neuendorf, and he said, it's these bad starts that are hurting us. We come out and we put goals on the board, and Andrew Gardner, our GM, he agreed. Said, don't know why it is that we have to give away so many to start, and hey, that's the $64,000 question, as they used to say. Keenan Plew, Samson with him, and we see that little zone again, that loose zone. Thunderbirds trying whatever they can, and you see that it doesn't take Indianapolis a second to get into that handler give-and-go game. They recognize right away these are experienced players, and Cameron Brock just laces a forehand shot up the line to Levi Jacobs, throws it into the middle, and it's a goal for Indianapolis, and didn't take long for them to break through that zone. Nice throw by Brock, a lot of heat on it, but once they were able to break out of that zone, it was no doubt that he was going to have an open cutter downfield, and his old friend Jacobs was there. You see Jacobs getting well-deserved plaudits as he walks off the field. Folks, we're going to tell you a little bit more about this when we get to the quarter break, but just a heads up to make sure that you get your tickets now, not just for our game against the DC Breeze, who will be in town on the 2nd here at the Bluff, but also for the 3 o'clock game at the noon game at Founders Field on the 3rd, Sunday the 3rd, and that's going to be a mixed game between the Thunderbird Supercell team against the DC Breeze mixed team. This is something new in the AUDL. Unfortunately, that isn't new for the Thunderbirds. An incomplete swing. Jonathan Mass trying to pop one out to David Vatz cutting in and just caught the wind with too much bend, and now Cox has got the disc in his hand, sends one up the line. Jonathan Mass down there with Henderson, and they've got some help. I'm sorry, that was Triplett. Only caught the 4 on the back there, didn't see the 1. And fortunately, that didn't turn into another goal. Mass sends one up, finds Van Dusen in front of a lunging Hutton. Van Dusen laces one to Watt. What a nifty throw. Watt finds Vatz, and Vatz looks to go back to Watt, but instead he finds Van Dusen. Thunderbirds on the march and on the goal line. And Vatz is open over there, looking for that open space. It was Jimmy Toll. Vatz found it in front of Wegner. A big goal there, and you saw Van Dusen looking across the field at Watt, but instead he finds David Vatz, as he so often does. And Vatz pulls in another goal as Matty Francis raises the banner, and the Thunderbirds creep closer to double digits. It's 14-8, 14-9 now for the Thunderbirds. So very excited about that game with the Supercell team, and we'll tell you all about it. But it's no secret to viewers and followers of the AUDL that there is a contingent of folks associated with the league and associated with the sport, I among them, who are very big proponents of mixed play, see that as a very bright part of the future of Ultimate, would like to see women represented in professional Ultimate. And some folks have responded by boycotting the league this year, including some of the Thunderbirds in previous years. And others, like the Thunderbirds management and the whole team, are looking for ways to work mixed play into the AUDL. And that's what this is all about. We'll tell you about it more. In the meantime, though, juggling the disc on the sidelines and eventually, maybe with a little help from Diamichis, losing a handle on it is North. It's been pretty sure-handed all day. And now, the disc in the hands of Robar, she sends it out to Trimble. Vertical stack in front of him, and then cutting in, looks like Steve May. Will he catch up with it? He does, sliding catch. And that was Jack Heffron. I apologize to Mr. May, but unfortunately he gives it back to Keenan Plew. Brock has it, and a wide open Rick Gross in the end zone. And so again, what looked like it could have been an opportunity turns into another point for Indianapolis, and an easy one. Floating to Gross in the end zone. He gets those arms up there and puts the clap on it. And Thunderbirds down 15-8. Once again, the standings in the Midwest Division for the Thunderbirds finds Madison on top of the heap. As usual, no surprise there. And of course, the Thunderbirds, who have played Madison in 3 consecutive Midwest Division finals, find themselves down there at the bottom, trying to stay out of the basement. Only one win, and that against the Detroit Mechanix. And then rounding out that list in the standings, you've got the Chicago Wildfire, Minnesota Windchill, and then our Thunderbirds and the Mechanix. So Indy near the top. Looks like there was maybe a travel, push on the mark, waiting for the call.
Well, pick call.
It was a pick. Called from downfield. Now the disc is in Max Shepard's hands. And this one sent out to Owen Watt. Josh Duncan giving chase. They both lay out. Duncan gets a hold of it. A nice bid and a good idea. No problem with the throw. But at 15-8, Thunderbirds are going to have to convert a few more of those, and Brian Heim puts the disc down on the goal line as Michael Ames runs back to pick it up. Michael Ames, always, as I said, a fun guy to talk to. Always willing to talk a little trash. The Birdman and Dave Vatz playing sandwich over there. And this one goes over the head of an in-cutting Craven. And Jonathan Mass is going to pick it up as the Thunderbirds looking to capitalize there. Maybe hold here. Unfortunately, whoa, that one gets blocked by Jones, but not blocked enough. Toll somehow gathered it in. Now Beardsley throws it backwards, which is his métier. There's contact on the mark, and sure enough, Mike Gorham calls it. And you don't see Michael Ames arguing, so John Mass is going to get 10 yards. Disc sent out into space and pulled in by Watt. So it's 15-9, and really all of that was keyed by something pretty miraculous, which was a catch that shouldn't have been, and it concluded with this nice break to Owen Watt in the end zone, get the Thunderbirds one step closer to double digits, and we see that team coming off the field. They've been running hard all day. Thunderbirds have had to play a lot of offense today, receiving a lot of pulls, but not as much to show for it as they would like. Looking at standings in other parts of the AUDL. In the East, no surprise to find the Toronto Rush on top, 3-0. New York Empire trail them. And then Philadelphia Phoenix and the DC Breeze will be coming here, rounding things out in the East. Samson finds his friend, Keenan Plew. And again, that zone, Brian Cicilline. And remember, the point of this is just to try to force a mistake. And so far, it's been difficult. This one expertly sent across the field to Levi Jacobs, who stops, and Rick Gross works his man in the end zone. and sends him running towards the corner. Felipe Delgado goes with him. When you're out there in that position, you're really on an island, and it's very, very tough to stop an unmarked thrower from doing exactly what you see Brock doing here. And you see Delgado really has no choice there, because Jacobs had the disc with no real mark on him. His marker rushing over to try to seal things off, and Delgado had to contain Gross in both directions. And of course, only Superman can do that. Even he would have a lot of trouble against Rick Gross. So it's 16-9. Thunderbirds find themselves trailing with 6 minutes left to go in this third period. A third period that looked like they might come out and do some damage. As it turns out, they've been having some of the same problems that have haunted them, though they have been able to make some noise deep. A little contact at the back between Hutton and Vats. Shepard has it. Triplett marking him. Birdman gathers it in, looking to throw it backwards, and instead throws it up to Max Shepard, who pops up for a bail cut and then sends one across the field. This one's going to be a contest, and it's won by Curtis. Underneath it was Jimmy Toll and Sam Van Duzen, and looks like Schwartz came over, Aaron Schwartz, for good measure, but that one was popped up and really wasn't to anybody. It was more to a space. Triplett sends one across the field to Wegner. He gathers it in. It's joined by a double team, which he passes out of, and Triplett jumps up to save it from going over his head, which would have been unfortunate for Indy, working it on their goal line. Big mark by Beardsley, tough to get around there. Max Shepard kind of playing a center fielder, rolling with the mark, and that means that stuff like this can happen. When the easy passes are denied, it's the hard ones. Van Duzen rushes over to it, thinks the better, and decides to let his team get set in front of him. Mast is his sidecar, and another great cut by Max Shepard, but a stumble. And instead, just pops a high release up over the top. John Mast looking and finds Shepard, who is the key to the offense right now. No immediate cut for him. Toll makes the cut. Curtis marks him, and this one is blocked by Jones. Just a flubbed exchange. Horizontal stack in front of the AlleyCats, and Wegner pulls it down. Van Duzen on him and working hard against Ethan Beardsley. It's a height mismatch there of Triplett and Beardsley. He's got it on the home sideline, sends it into the middle, finds Cox. Cox finds Jones downfield, gains some yardage to Triplett. Beardsley marking him, and Jones rockets up the line. Shepard trailing the play, but Jones is able to put the squeeze on it and add another point to the mounting total for Indianapolis. It's 17-9 at the 4-minute mark. And John Jones has had a terrific game today. Nobody's been able to contain him, and that strike cut was just another example of it. Just beats his man, Owen Watt, up the field, and he's a fast guy, and he knows where to go. Taking a look at the Thunderbird schedule moving forward. Pull that up for you on the AUDL app, which you can download to your phone. Keeps you up to date. The scores get updated constantly, so you're never going to be behind the action. And we'll finish out that Thunderbird schedule after this point. The coach tracks down a deep pull. Robarge, the proprietor of Revival Chili, used to enjoy them when we were over at Couples Field, Couples Stadium. Trucks has it. Eddie Peters working the middle there. And inside out finds the Amicus. Throws it behind Eddie, who gathers it back in. Jack Heffron at the back. Big fakes from Eddie. Throws one up. Who's going to come down with this one? It is Heffron. So a more aggressive Thunderbirds offensive two-team comes out. And Heffron comes down with Eddie Peters' pass. You can see it looked like it might be interesting, but North was unable to get over there in time. And Thunderbirds are into double-digit territory. Scored very quickly there. And some nice work from the second offensive team. That's got to be encouraging for a team that is looking for good signs. Eddie Peters having a nice game today, playing a bigger role in the offense on that second team. He sort of anchors it, and he's going to stay on the field to play defense. So, looking ahead on the schedule, we told you Minnesota will be here on the 19th at 6 p.m. Then, coming on the 2nd, we'll have D.C. on Saturday at 6, and then that Supercell game. Don't miss that mixed game at noon at Founders Field the next weekend. And, the next day, Sunday the 3rd. Get some great mixed ultimate. Here's a great pull coming down, surfing the wind. Will it come down in bounds? It does. Samson makes sure of it then. That's always the hardest pull to catch, is the one after the one you drop, but he pulls that one in. Keenan Palouse sends it up to his partner in crime, Cameron Brock. Finds North, who has fit into this Indy team just beautifully. Carpenter running around, and you see it's a push pass, gets knocked in the air, and then North and Robarge both bidding for it. It hits the turf. So, a nice block on an ill-advised pass. Now looking to get out of the spot they're in. Makes a motion. Felipe Delgado catches one from Diamichis. See if the D team can convert. John Buss has the disc. He's got a wide array of throws. Decides to throw an easy one back to Robarge. Eddie Peters breaks off the front of the stack. What does he have in front of him? Nothing immediately. Thunderbirds could use a little more flow off of this downfield. Each time the handlers catch the disc there's Pat Mack with the disc now, surveying the end zone. Each time the handlers catch the disc for Indy, they've got cutters. Each time the Thunderbirds catch the disc, they look downfield and they see nothing. A lot of standing around the stack. It means they have to keep creating, and it is difficult to beat guys in a dead sprint. You got to beat them off motion. And you can see the Thunderbirds stall count getting high. Finally, Eddie Peters gets open in front, but again, there's no follow here. And he decides to wedge one into the back corner of the end zone for Akon, but he just can't get his hands on it. And that's simply a matter of flow. That is simply a matter of flow. Akon looks like he's not feeling too good after that layout. You see him trying to toe it in. He lands hard, and he gets up saying, "I'm not myself," calling for a sub. And that means that Indy will be able to take a sub if they want. Heffron goes off. Or goes on as Akon comes off. Indy looks to stay pretty solid there with their lineup. So, great handler movement, but again, you have to flow off that handler movement. Let's watch Indy's offense, and I think you'll see the difference here. That when these guys catch the disc, look, there's Levi Jacobs pulling a defender out of position. Quick scooper into the middle and motion right away among the handlers, and it is jacked into space. And Gross has a chance to catch up to this one. He does 5 yards out, trailed by Diamichis. Diamichis tries to pop over and stop Levi Jacobs, but he doesn't. Jacobs pulls it in, and with 1:52 left, a frustrating exchange for the Thunderbirds, whose D team worked it very steadily down to the goal line, only to have a turnover down there. A player gets hurt, and Indianapolis answers with a quick score. But you can see once again how effectively Indy moves the disc after handler throws to downfield cutters, and how static, admittedly, that was the Thunderbirds' defensive team out there. And so to expect fluid cutting from them, maybe a little bit too much, but if they're going to come back, they're going to have to be able to make some offensive plays on defense. Can't send your offensive team out there with a timeout every time. You only get a couple of half. High pull's going to come down inbounds, just about the goal line. Shepard gathers it in, finds his friend Mast. Can't really fault the handlers that much, although they have had some bad exchanges today. Catching it in front of Cox is Mast, moves him out of position with a nice fake and then quick backhand. Ethan Beardsley finds David Vatz, who is clobbered by Cox, and that can't feel good. Cox is a big fella. He fills out that uniform and looks a little bit more like a fullback than he does a handler. And Dave Vatz looks to be okay. We'll see if he sues for pain and suffering. Hutton on the mark there. Triplet marking Van Duzen, who wiggles and waggles and gets the disc. Sends one up for Owen Watt. Nice grab by Watt. He had Jimmy Toll cutting away from him. And now Van Duzen working hard to get open. Gets open on a direct dump. Max Shepard into the middle of the field. And he pulls one down, another one a little behind him. Beardsley working in front of him. He's got it 10 yards out. Finds Watt, laces one into the middle. Now there's good movement for the Thunderbirds. And Watt sends it to Mast in the end zone. On a strike cut from the backfield, Thunderbirds pick up their 11th point. Once again, Max Shepard keying the offense, and eventually it finds Watt, who sends it to Mast, who just runs it out in the end zone. More of that for the Thunderbirds offense and less of what they've had, which is misplays and mismatches. You can see Mast and Watt talking with each other. How do we do that again? What do we do right? What's been going wrong? So we are looking further down the schedule. We told you about the weekend of the 2nd and 3rd of June. And the Breeze will be here on Saturday night, and then the Supercell Mixed team will be out at Founders Field on Sunday afternoon at noon. Get your tickets for that online at the Thunderbirds website. See our Facebook page. And then on the 9th, Philadelphia will welcome us in a cross-coast challenge. Not exactly a cross-coast challenge, unless you want to count the Monongahela as a coast and the Schuylkill River as a coast. But Philadelphia, an exciting team this year, and they'll be hosting us. An out-of-division game, and then Madison comes to town on the 16th. So make sure that you join us out here for that to see some of the best in the AUDL. Thunderbirds will go on the road on June 23rd to Minnesota, and they'll stay on the road for another week. Play Detroit on the 30th, and we'll be back home to wrap up the regular season 2 weeks later against the Mechanix on a Saturday evening at 6 o'clock on the 14th. Got time running out in the quarter. And a hammer going up from Plu, and it finds what can't go wrong. Rick Gross in the back. As with only 3 seconds left, Indianapolis notches its 19th point, and you see hands on the top of his head, Diesel saying, "What do you want me to do?" Thunderbirds giving the disc up there, and then that was a hold for the AlleyCats, but definitely a last-second hammer. Coming down pretty as you please in the hands of the receiver in the end zone. Can't feel good. Now, Thunderbirds will have a chance to send their tall lineup deep out here right now, because the clock won't start until after that first pass. And that means that the Thunderbirds, your screen clock reflects 0. Now we've adjusted it to 4. They'll have 4 seconds, and they've got Sam Van Dusen on the field and Max Shepard, both guys capable of sending it deep. My guess is that either one of them will put it up. Sam Van Dusen's the obvious one. If I were Curtis, I'd be coming down to try to stop this shot. All right, time ticking. Here goes the throw. It's going to stay in bounds. It's going to reach the end zone. Maybe. Beardsley underneath it. It's bobbled. Wouldn't have been a goal. Would not have been a goal, and Wegner, one reason or another, decides to spike the disc. Don't know exactly what he was celebrating, other than the fact that at the third quarter, it's 19-11. Favor of his Indianapolis AlleyCats. And you can see that one. Not sure what it was that he was mad about. Maybe he felt like there was some contact there, or maybe he just didn't like that particular Frisbee. But boom, down it goes. And the Thunderbirds unable to take advantage of that last floater. Van Dusen didn't have a great look and not a great angle for the throw, so it didn't quite reach the end zone. So the Thunderbirds gather on the sidelines as a team, listening to Pat Hammonds, trying to find a way to make this last quarter at least one that they can build on. You see the Hucket Bucket Challenge about to begin. And GM Andrew Gardner, who does everything. GM's office is not high above the field here. It involves hanging up the signs and selling the tickets and answering the email, and Andrew does it all. So now you see a whole crew here. Matty Francis counting down the Hucket Bucket Challenge. We don't know how much money is in that pot. You see Ed is out there, Ed Thompson from High Exposure Photography, to catch any disc that manages to find its way into the Hucket Bucket. One was thrown early, and here they go. A cascade of little yellow plastic toys. Oh my goodness, a blade nearly goes in. And if they landed in one of the rings, they get a lesser prize, and the closest one to the bucket will win the challenge. You see some people holding their fire, some going fast. Ed gets into a better position. The players watching with interest. Somebody can win the Hucket Bucket Challenge. Each one of those, whoa, one glances off the top. And as time expires, the judges will come out to see. Nothing in there, Andrew dumps it over. So there's the closest one. Andrew's marking it down, and he'll get a little prize. But we've had people win the Hucket Bucket Challenge. In fact, my brother-in-law, Andy Norman, and then my nephew, Kai, his son, won, I think, on consecutive weeks. So that's leading to rumors that, of course, it's rigged. It's not. You come down here, you'll have just as good a chance as anybody, and I hope you will come down here. It's a great show and a great afternoon. You can see there Felipe Delgado talking to some folks in the stands. You see Steve McGilsky in white rehabbing a knee injury, and we really hope that Steve Moe comes back 100% and joins the team again. Big number 32 had so much spark and so much hustle, and it's tough not to see him out there, but it's given other guys a chance to step up. And hey, this is not going to be the Thunderbirds' greatest year. We know that. But there's also, I think, a lot to look forward to. There are some guys here who I think are going to be different players a year from now. And we've seen good things from guys like Jack Heffron, Ryan Cicilline. We've seen Owen Watt make some big plays for the Thunderbirds. And Jimmy Toll coming into his own as a leader on the team. You know, we don't have Mark Fedorenko. He's hurt right now. Mo Jada before he went out. So lots of things to be excited about. And every team has its down years. And this looks like it's going to be one for the Thunderbirds. We don't want to write off a season. Things don't look great right now. But it's the first year with a new coach. And Thunderbirds are in it for the long haul. More action now as Cameron Brock corrals a swing pass. Anthony Kahn's been bidden all over the field. He came off the field a little injured, but that doesn't stop him from making a bid as soon as he's back on. Nifty Scuba from Carpenter to Brock as the AlleyCats cross midfield. And how many times have we called Brock to Plou for a goal? Those guys often up near the top of the league in assists and goals, and you can see right here why. Plou knew exactly when to make that cut, and the Diesel can't quite catch up. So we find ourselves at 2011. Thunderbirds trying not to be eclipsed by double digits and trying to work on stuff to build. Looking forward to having Ultiworld come into town for that into Philadelphia for that Philly matchup against the Phoenix. And we'll hopefully have Charlie Eisenhood on the call. If you haven't subscribed to Ultiworld, can't recommend it highly enough. Some of the best writing about Ultimate, all of the issues, not just games and scores. And Ultimate players, it turns out, are pretty good writers for athletes. This is a sport that a lot of folks pick up in college, and an articulate group of writers. Jonathan Mast, a bright guy, but all the brains in the world can't catch up to a throw that's trailing out of bounds, and Owen Watt had an opportunity to put one right out in front of his handler making a strike cut, but it fell errant out of bounds. You can see Andrew Miller over there, assistant coach at Shadyside Academy, where I teach and where I coach. Our kids have enjoyed having Andrew Miller. He conditions them more than they like, but hey, it's good for him, and you see him running the sideline over there doing a nice job for us today. Haven't heard his name. That's a good thing for a ref. Wegner thunders down the field, and Cox attempted to send one up, but it was deflected on the way down the field, and so the T-Birds are going to pick it up with a chance to go on offense and get this hold. Max Shepard working against Schwartz, gets open pretty easily. Looks, what's he got? He's got a deep cutting Sam Van Duzen and a beautiful huck, triplet underneath it. Van Duzen maintains body position, keeps his arms out in front of him and scores. And those two thinking, hey, if we got to do everything, that's what we're going to do. Two of the Thunderbirds' best players, and this huck just perfect. Floats out beyond the outstretched hands of the defender and right into Van Duzen's. And you can tell Sam Van loves to cut for Max Shepard. And I think the feeling is mutual. As much as you can get those two guys involved in both ends of the offense, as much as you can get the opponent, the AlleyCats in this case, to respect the fact that either Sam Van or Max Shepard can hurt you with the disc in his hands or running it down, they can't cover him everywhere on the field. And if the Thunderbirds have to become a little one-dimensional on offense, let's make the other team prove that they can stop that combination. Sam Sohn now in command of the offense with Travis Carpenter behind him. And the Thunderbird zone, which hasn't proved to be particularly effective so far, settles in. Cicilline in the middle with Pat Hammonds kind of playing just behind that. If you want to call it a cup, you can, maybe the wall. Over on the far side of the field, we've got Peaches over here, Justin Kincaid in the 92 jersey without a name. And now they call fire, decide to go to offense, to man defense, but it's too late. By then, Levi Jacobs is gathering it in. And Indianapolis notches another one. And here you see a nifty little inside out. Keenan Plew finding Levi Jacobs. And you know, that zone, absent wind, absent rain, absent an inept opponent, it's mostly a way, I think, to take advantage of the strengths that exist on that D2 team. Guys who can run sideline to sideline, some experience in the backfield, not as much up in the front, but it's not an ideal solution. Thunderbirds awaiting this pull from Travis Carpenter. It's a high one that settles down in Max Shepard's hands. Now John Mast has it. Sorry, Sam Van Duzen caught that pull. Now Johnny Toll has it. It's a little bump going upfield. And now David Vatz underneath it with Steiner. This one should be interesting, but it isn't. It goes out of bounds. Out of bounds is never interesting. And Michael Ames goes to pick it up. Laces it into the middle to Carpenter, who finds Gross, trailed by Beardsley. And Steiner just loses concentration. And I think it's kind of hard to hold concentration. These AUDL games are long, and at this point, Indianapolis playing a game yesterday. Probably not going to lose this one, and I think Steiner just lost his focus for a minute. It only takes that. No loss of focus from Henderson there as he lays out in front of Max Shepard, who finds David Vatz for yet another goal. Nice layout there, but not enough to stop this one, and Shepard finds Vatz, who always finds the open spaces. Checking with our stats department to see how many David Vatz has, and that's 4. So practically a full third of the total that the Thunderbirds have. So David Vatz finding the open spaces, but not enough opportunities for him. Akon, disc aloft, Robarch next to him and ready to launch it. It's a low liner. Tough pulling in that direction all day, and the flags are jumping a little bit. Sam Sohn and Plew, he's double teamed pretty quickly by Pat Mack, who races back. Pat Mack is a quick guy. Heffron attempting to shut off that inside out. And now a break throw up the line. It's a pretty throw, and it finds Sohn in the end zone. Wow, what a nice throw by North, who catches it off of a break and doesn't hesitate, just turns and throws a perfect bender. It didn't float, just the right amount of edge on that disc. And it settles down right into the hands of Sohn. And that was one that Akon knew, didn't have to lay out for there. And you can see as he walks off the sideline, Sohn celebrating. And Akon, I can tell you, he's not walking the way that he normally walks. I think his body's taken a beating. But you have to admire that. And it's a good sign for the Thunderbirds that their young players are not playing this game like it's over. They're still bidding. Still working hard, still running hard on the mark, and trying to make absolutely everything of every opportunity. In this game, every point you play is an opportunity. As somebody still trying to play at 51 years old, I can tell you, all of those points are special. And no matter what, even when you're trailing by 9, as these guys are, you're still playing Ultimate. Getting paid a little bit to do it, too. It's been a fun thing about the pro game. And this one-game format, rather than having to go someplace to a field complex. Oh, man, look at that. We told you he wasn't tired of laying out, and he is an icon. Or that Owen Watt. Owen Watt lays out. He finds Shepard. He lays out. Jimmy Toll sends one out in front of Van Dusen. He tracks it down. Pure effort on that point by the Thunderbirds. Boy, oh boy, Owen Watt with a big layout. Catches it, sends it to Shepard, who lays out just to make sure, and it eventually ends up in the hands of Van Dusen. Owen Watt was our player of the game a couple of weeks ago, and you can see here, man, he leaves his feet, full extension layout, ends up on his side, gets up right away. Jones puts the mark on, surveys the middle, and starts the throw that ends up with a 22-14 score, 8:04 left. And again, like I said, our young players out there hustling, and then tippy toes as Sam Van Dusen brings it in for the goal. All the way on the other side of the field. Oh, here's a roller that might as well have been an offsides, although it does allow the Thunderbirds to clamp on a double team here. Two big guys over there, Heffron and Trimble, but passing right out of the double team to a wide open Keegan North. And that's not supposed to be a throw that's available when you put two big guys on the thrower. You know, you're using the sideline as a defender, but the sideline can't leap in and block the throw that North pulls in. You've got to shut off the up-the-liner. And so an ineffective double team, and North happy about it. There's a guy with a lot of goals today. Keegan North showing why assistant coach Katie Dyer was happy about him. I said, Katie, what can you tell me about this lineup that I don't already know, because we know these guys so well? She said, keep your eye on Keegan North. He's been a great addition to the team. And sure enough, he is. He played for Cincinnati before that team folded, and now trying out for High Five, was on the U24 U.S. team. So just a great addition. Talk about great. Jonathan Mast. Those rangy throws. He gets so much range and still has touch. It's just not easy to do. He and Van Dusen working with each other. And Max Shepard decides to go deep. Sam Van sees him, but it's picked up deep. And that was a smart defensive play by Robbie Craven, who was undoubtedly told by Coach Leonard, and there's Max coming back in, said, all right, you're going to try to stop me with my cuts. Then I'm going to cut back in and catch the disc. Strikes up the line, pulls the defender with him, and you just see the whole defense just flexing to adjust to Max Shepard. Sam Van Dusen throws one to the other side of the end zone. Can Ethan Beardsley pull it in? He would have been in bounds if he had been able to hold on to it with that right hand, but after a long run, just didn't have it. But, yeah, it was a nice play by Robbie Craven when Max went deep. He went with him. Eventually, Van Dusen throws this one over to Ethan Beardsley, and normally the Birdman's going to hold that, but I think the sideline made it difficult. Ames sends this one up, and this is a classic hospital pass. Too bad we're not sponsored by UPMC anymore. Of course, we know that Anthony Mobile is here just in case anybody gets hurt. Thankfully, nobody did. And that's a pass you can throw when you're up 23-14. Probably the coach doesn't love it. Van Dusen takes one from Shepard. Marked by Jacobs, looking, sending it deep. And you see Jimmy Toll makes a great little play down there. I'll tell you what he did in a second to Josh Duncan, but it was a smart veteran play. And then he goes to the far side of the end zone. Shepard airs it out to him and pulls in the 15th Thunderbird score. But you can see there, that pass went up to Jimmy Toll, and he did not have position. If Josh Duncan had turned around, then Jimmy Toll would have probably had it blocked. But instead what he did was he suckered him. He didn't look up until the last minute. And then when Duncan realized it was in the air, Jimmy was already off his feet with that claw wrapped around the plastic. And so a veteran play by Jimmy Toll. And then this nice break force throw finds Toll again, so give him a sort of bookends there. He makes a big catch, dishes it, and then goes and finds the open space on the far side of the end zone. And a big, big addition to the Thunderbirds' leadership this year. Of course, he was around some last year, but I've talked to Coach Lionetti and Pat Hammonds, and they have both said that Jimmy Toll is going to be a really terrific player in this game. Plays bigger than he is, and apparently just a live wire on a team that really needs to stay motivated and focused. You know, you can't measure success entirely by wins and losses. These are pros, and of course that's what matters. Travis Carpenter, who is a pro for sure, sends it back to Keenan Plew, and we see that very efficient movement by the handlers. Samson finds Jacobs on our sideline. Akon sends a little one up to Samson, and Sohn finds North again. And that was just a little bit of an overcommitment there by Akon, allowing Sohn to get open on the strike cut. And another easy goal with 6 minutes left. And that margin of 9 held that way for most of this quarter. And Keegan North, boy, getting a little tired calling that fella's name, but he deserves it. Great game. Gotta love the leggings on Wegner. AUDL, unlike some other leagues, allowing for a little bit of the individuality that is just a part of Ultimate. And I don't think that you can professionalize it out of the game, and I don't think the league wants to. And so Nick Hazer, who is a sometimes rostered player for this team in the past, used to wear some really spectacular leggings. An artistic statement. Teams don't have to wear uniform cleats. And it's been fun. It's been fun to see this game get translated into a professional version of the game. As I said, I think it's great for fans who can come out here and see their teams play in this one-game format, get to know their opponents. This one popped up. Shepard pulls it down. There was a whistle on the play. We'll see what it is. No call so far. Disc is in play. Shepard sends one up, looking for Watt, but boy, Jones. How about a star for John Jones? This guy has stifled the Thunderbirds on so many in-cuts. And you can see it again here. Watt has the inside track, and Jones just with 2 or 3 steps closes it. This could get interesting. Wegner underneath it, unintimidated by the stampeding Beardsley, and then he sends one up into the end zone, and wow, Hutton still trying hard at this point. Nice bid, tries to catch the follow-up, but it falls to the turf. Van Duzen throws a break, finds Mast. Shepard working downfield. Coming in is Toll. Toll shoots a forehand over to Van Duzen. This keeps moving, and now it is ripped. Shepard underneath it. He's got company. Curtis coming. Schwartz there too, but Max jumps up and pulls it down with the left hand. You've got to love any matchup that has Max Shepard there. This is a guy, again, he feels the heat from Curtis coming. Schwartz with inside position. He jumps too early. Shepard holds his fire until the disc is right there, and Matty Francis, wave it wide and high, Matty. Summertime just arrived, and Max Shepard with it. With the disc, Thunderbirds closing to within 8, 4:23 left. And we can just watch at this point to see how are the T-Birds going to adjust in these last 4 minutes, put as many points on the board as they can, find combinations that work for them. And right now, Max Shepard has been an important key. The question is, those slender shoulders, just how much of the load can they handle? But sending him downfield and moving the disc through him has been effective. It's just not a recipe for long-term success to have one player that the other team can key on. Speaking of one player, here's Cameron Brock. He has been a Indianapolis mainstay forever, and he finds an open space in the end zone, slides for the score. And after all that work, Indianapolis just takes the point right back. Beautiful throw. Floats out there, and just to make sure, Brock lays down, pulls it in. You know, Eric Leonard doesn't have a lot of work to do because he's got coaches on the field, guys like Brock and Plew, Schwartz, Gross. These are guys who know the game really well. Talking earlier about Donald Robinson, guy who has become a really important person in Pittsburgh Ultimate is so many players, both recreational players, club players, pro players have been working with him. And Andrew Gardner, with Rob Dulabon moving out of town, former Thunderbirds player and trainer, Max Shepard saying, hey, where's my call there? Donald Robinson of Global Human Performance, former track star at Slippery Rock, and then grad student at University of Texas. Boy, look how hard Max Shepard is working. And look how hard Henderson's working on him. Shepard cutting so hard downfield. Now Vats with an open spot, but Michael Ames drops off and manages to shut off that spot. But Max Shepard coming back, puts one up. Jimmy Toll underneath it with Steiner. Looks like it's over Steiner, and Jimmy climbs the ladder to pull it down. And that's what we were talking about. Max Shepard, you have to respect him when he goes deep. And so when he comes back and gets the disc into his hands, he's in a position often to make a throw in, and that tight defense against him sometimes helps him, as a big bid past him leaves him in a power position looking downfield with no mark and full vision. And he took advantage of it there to find Jimmy Toll, who just climbs the ladder, and you saw pulled it down. That's the second, third, fourth time he's done that today. And so a lot of Thunderbird weapons in the air are not guys you'd think of to look at their physical stature. Jimmy Toll, Max Shepard, John Diamichis, guys like that who aren't too tall when their cleats are on the ground, but boy, they get big once they push the earth down beneath them and go up there and get that disc. Bright sun causes Keenan Plew to say, you know what, I think I'll let this one hit the ground. Travis Carpenter gathers it in. Quickly joined out there by a mark, and Samson once again suckers his defender into letting a strike cut go. And a big block by Jack Heffron. Oh man, that swing looked like it was going to be there, but Heffron was baiting it all along. Boy, that guy is fast. Robarge picks it up. Can defense score here? Pat Mack in the handle, pulls down a swing. Reset throw back to Robarge. Heffron working hard. He's got the disc 10 yards out or so, and he calls a timeout to get the offensive team on the field, but boy, did he do his job. Thunderbird D.
Timeout on the field.
Take a look at Jack Heffron. There's a double team on there, and he just sees it coming, and look how quick he makes that move. He can't even get a full step. It's two little steps and then launched. Boom. Has the good presence of mind to catch it and put it on the ground because he didn't want it in his hands. He wanted to go ahead and cut. So Jack Heffron flashing what they've been looking for from him since he joined the roster as a part-time player last year. Jack, as we said, is a mixed division player, played for Alloy last year. And I got a chance to match up against Jack a couple of times yesterday in tryouts for the Pittsburgh mixed teams. Alloy, the A team, went to Nationals last year, a couple of years now. And Crucible, the very high-quality B team. And I figured, what the heck? I might as well go out there and see if I've got anything left in the tank, and had a nice day yesterday out there with some of the best mixed players in town and some up-and-coming players, and enjoyed matching up with Jack Heffron. He's not just a good player, he's a heck of a nice guy, and a really nice addition to the Pittsburgh Ultimate scene. So let's see if John Mast can take advantage of the gift that Jack just gave him. Taps the disc on his leg, looking at a diagonal stack in front of him with Shepard at the top. Watt dancing around with, looks like maybe Curtis in the middle of that stack. Vats, always a good candidate to find an open spot. Ethan Beardsley, who led the league in goals a few years ago in his first year, hasn't been since then. And up the line, look from both Van Duzen and Shepard, but instead Watt gets it in the middle. Mast running behind him, maybe looking to try the break side, but instead they go back strike. Mast pushes, and here's a hammer, helixing away from the receiver, and unfortunately Toll is unable to pull this one down. And there's number 85 again, John Jones, to muck up the Thunderbirds' plan. So once again, a turnover down near the Thunderbirds' attacking goal line near the Indianapolis end zone. And once again, a timeout to get the offensive team on the field. And once again, disappointment. Maybe not disappointment here. This one sails over the head of its intended receiver, Curtis. And Toll and Watt back there to make things difficult. And now jogging to the disc with a little over 2 minutes remaining is Jonathan Mast. Max Shepard back to join him. Ethan anchors the top of the stack. Sam Van Dusen streaking in, goes forced to break, but Hutton says no way. And then throws a wobbler up to North, and then he jacks an inside out sort of high release to Jones, who runs underneath it. With 2 minutes left, the AlleyCats push it back out to 9. Jones getting bookends there, I think. Catching the goal after getting a block. He's made it very difficult for the Thunderbirds to move the disc and stifle a lot of cuts. Great instincts cutting on the field, and a guy who they depend on to keep both their defense and also to make catches that score points in the end zone. He's done plenty of that today. So a frustrated Thunderbirds team walking off the side, and a happy one there with Levi Jacobs with the disc in his hands, ready to launch it. Happy Indy team. Sends up a great big arcing pull. Going to find its way into the hands of Captain Pat Hammonds. Slithers away from him. Robarge has it now, horizontal stack. Pat Mack goes down on one knee, quickly moves it back into the middle of the field. Some room for Hammonds to work. And he looks up and finds Heffron. Jack, surrounded, got a double team, but laces it back to the coach. Pat Mack over at the hash marks, just short of midfield. The Diesel has it now. He laces an inside-out break up to Heffron to gain about 10 yards. And this one caught off of the deflection by Pat Mack. My goodness. Henderson got his hands on it. Looked like it was going to be another turnover. Hammonds has it. Clock at about a minute and 15 seconds. Thunderbirds just working and trying to score here. It's not the worst time to play run out the clock offense, you know. You're not going to win the game, so let's see if you can maintain possession of it. Goes a high release up to Robarge, tries to jump into the end zone, comes up a yard short, sends it across the field. Eddie Peters tracking it down, and he scores. And that was keyed by a nice play. Great concentration by Pat Mack. And you can see it here. He makes a nice throw to set up he gets the hockey assist. Robarge laces it across the field. But it was that catch that he made off of the deflection that really took instincts and concentration. So we're under a minute left. Indianapolis leading by 8. Eddie Peters accepting congratulations as he comes off the field. Defense 2 on the field. Bus with the disc. And here, Plew and Brock. These guys are, you look at that, and that picture says Midwest Division, AUDL, about as well as anything. These two guys just on so many campaigns together, and it's fun to watch them. John Buss sends up what might be the last pull. We'll see. It goes out of bounds. It'll be a brick. And Keenan Plew comes over to pick it up. He would have been the centering pass anyway. And inside the last minute, we don't have a dead disc clock. So this will be put in play, 20 yards up, 25 yards up. I'm sorry. We're at 20. Here comes that zone, so we'll see. They've been able to break through it quickly. Got that wall. Looking for an opportunity like that. Cicciolini almost gets it, but it's caught. Steve May comes on the mark. Ryan close to Travis Carpenter, looking for a little space. Having trouble finding somebody, so North comes back to help him. You see the Indy player cycling through, and now hammer across the field into open space. It finds Gross. Gross finds Brock. He puts the clap on it, and with 23 seconds remaining, Indy up 27-18. And eventually, you know, with nothing to lose here, that hammer made sense. And, you know, into open space, players this good, the flags at rest against the flagpoles, the evening, taking the wind out of the air. That was pretty easy completion. Meanwhile, Thunderbirds in this calm evening prepare to receive what will this time likely be the last pull of the night. A game that they're just going to have to go back to the drawing board. You see a happy Hutton, Nick Hutton out there, been involved in so many great plays. Highlight plays out here, some terrific bids, layouts. And now their eyes shielded against the sun. The Thunderbirds handlers prepare to get things started. Kind of a loose sort of zone, a wall. Really, it's a man, but content to let the Thunderbirds play catch here. Dave Vatz looking downfield. He finds Mast. We're down to 10. You hear the crowd start to count it down. And Mast just unleashes one, kind of fakes it with a look. Van Dusen underneath. Can he come down with it? He cannot. And mistimed his jump a little bit. Time expires from the clock. And it looks like the game is over. Players coming out onto the field to shake hands. Brian Heim, the game disc in his hands, and a final score of 27-18 favor of the AlleyCats as the teams get ready to shake hands with each other. You see Indianapolis coming out of this weekend with 2 wins against teams who we have to say they should win against. The Thunderbirds fall into that category now. And they take their record to 5-1 and get ready to face this team again. And honesty compels us to admit that they're probably not going to be too unhappy to see the Thunderbirds next week. Meanwhile, the Thunderbirds have a lot of work to do as they get ready to face Indianapolis. What will they come up with to keep the disc moving, to get more flow from their offense, to iron out some of these mistakes? Well, that's something for Coach Hammonds and Coach Dave Lionetti to work out over the week. And we'll just have to see whether or not they're able to. But come win or lose, you know, you can always count on the Thunderbirds to come over and applaud their fans. And you see they're led by their veteran players, setting an example. You got Trucks Trimble pointing into the crowd, Dave Vatz smiling. Hevron comes over with him, and it's a nice tradition. They walk along the fence and they shake hands with their fans. And we'd love to see more fans out here. Every team performs better when they have a lot of support, and this is the best entertainment dollar you can get, I think. There's Steve McGilsky and Jack Heffron talking about how much I'm sure they'd like to play together next season, or maybe where they're going to go for dinner tonight. Who knows? It was a game that was one of missed opportunities for the Thunderbirds, and not a lot of challenges for Indianapolis. Rick Schwartz started things off pretty early. We see an easy break there. Keenan Plew again sending one into the corner of the end zone, and this time Keegan North on the end of that. When the Thunderbirds tried to make things work, sometimes they were able to, but oftentimes it just didn't work out. And there were just too many examples of guys like Curtis getting open behind the defense. Josh Duncan getting into the act. So the Indianapolis deep game was working. Every now and then a disc would sail out of bounds, but even then you had big effort from guys like Jones. And the Thunderbirds, just too many missed opportunities. But there were some bright spots, of course. The defensive 2 team moved the disc pretty well on a couple of occasions, and Sam Van Dusen, the highlight reel play, making the highlight reel, snatching one out of the air. Big bids from guys like Akon and Owen Watt. And Indianapolis playing the way that we expect them to. Colin Ringwood shaking his hand. At that point, the game was no longer in doubt, but that didn't stop him from making a big bid. Max Shepard, obviously a key to any Thunderbird success, but riding him awfully hard. Owen Watt laying out again. And Jimmy Toll, who continues to be a rising star, sometimes literally rising, to pull the disc down. And of course, the layout is a staple of Ultimate, not something that you get to see in every sport as often as you do here. You know, watch ESPN SportsCenter, some guy with a baseball glove lays out, catch a ball in the outfield, and you see it over and over again. Meanwhile, here you got guys like Brock, you got guys like Watt crash into the turf, and you see it 3-4 times a point. Over the top started to work as the evening got calmer. Trucks Trimble pulling one in there. And Travis Carpenter, who we've seen so often, used to be a cutter for this team, now more of a handler, but he can still go downfield. All these guys can. And Rick Gross, often a key on defense, didn't have to play a lot of it this time. Sam Van Dusen, often a starter for the offense, laying out, trying to pull one in as a receiver. But too often it was a guy like John Jones pulling things down in the end zone. And Keegan North, in addition to this Indianapolis roster, enjoying himself there trying to play a little hacky sack. People often mistake the two sports for one another. They're not the same, but Keegan wants to be a star in both. So, Sam Sohn, usually rock steady. There his hands were a little bit rocky, and this bounced right off it. And John Jones, we called his name all day, making blocks like that one for Trucks Trimble, but too many for Indianapolis and not enough for your Thunderbirds. Indy owned the air, and Indy also was able to work the disc easily against the Thunderbirds, catching some breaks when they needed them, but mostly just taking advantage of everything the T-Birds did wrong and not paying for it enough like they did there with Max Shepard pulled one in. Travis Carpenter showing off his skills with the break force throw, and from there it was off to the races. And Cameron Brock, who everybody knows is the heart and soul of Indianapolis. Speaking of heart and soul, increasingly Jimmy Toll is that for the Thunderbirds. But no amount of heart could erase all of those goals that went up today on the scoreboard, and the Thunderbirds found themselves able to hold off a double-digit loss, and David Vatz contributing a lot of those goals, just finding the open spaces on the field and in the end zone as he so often does. Hard to imagine how he does it, but good players know how to time their cuts and know their throwers well. Rick Gross is one of those. A spectacular play ended up not working out for the Thunderbirds, but Owen Watt, a double layout there, and then a bobble disc. So, despite some of the big plays that they were able to make, the Thunderbirds unequal to the task of playing Indianapolis today and coming away with a win. And next week they get a chance to do it again. And hopefully Indy will stream that game, and you can tune in. And don't forget to join us back here in Pittsburgh when the Thunderbirds will be back at home. Their next home game is going to be on the 19th at 6 p.m. Saturday night here at Art Rooney Stadium up on the bluff at Duquesne University, where they will welcome the Minnesota wind chill. Hopefully by then they'll have added a few more in the wins column, and we hope to have added a few more of you to our audience here in the stands. Come on down, check out the Thunderbirds, or join us here live and online for the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds and the AUDL and the Indianapolis AlleyCats. Wherever you were today, we thank you for spending this time with us and for joining us on this broadcast. So we'll let it go now with the Indianapolis AlleyCats winning the game against the Thunderbirds 27-18. Thanks for being here and being part of it. We'll see you next time on the Thunderbirds Broadcast Network.